And here we go.
Okay, hi everyone, welcome. We are doing our first kickoff event of the Solana Ignition Hackathon. We're going to be running these all throughout the event until October 8th. We'll have presentations from VCs and CEOs of leading companies. We'll have more technical workshops for developers that want to know how to build on Solana or any of the kind of companies sponsoring the event. We have Anatoly, the CEO of Solana Labs, and then Kyle Samani, one of the managing partners and co-founders of Multicoin Capital. So yeah, welcome to the stream.
Hey guys. Hey everyone.
Hey guys.
Yeah. Cool.
7 a.m. So happy to be here.
Yeah, it's early for us, a little later for Kyle, who's in Germany. But yeah, today we're just gonna have a discussion on potential hackathon project ideas. We just kind of want to pick your guys' brain and see what you want to see built during the event. So I guess the first question is we can kind of cover maybe previous hackathons, and you guys can give your experience on like what you guys really liked coming out of those and why you liked it from a project perspective. So yeah, Anatoly, do you want to start first?
Yeah, so I definitely really like the really deep technical DeFi projects that took the time to innovate on top of Serum, really figure out if there's an opportunity to build another financial money Lego that leverages the central limit order book. It's complicated and it's hard, right? And you got to kind of figure out where those innovations lie and like where the advantages lie dealing with this complex system. But that's the future of finance, right? Is like these message heavy central limit order books are the best version of price discovery that we have and that we know. And if you start thinking about building products on top of that now, I think it's kind of the perfect time to see if there's an edge and figure out if there's a way to innovate. But that's the boring stuff. I love everything that's like really consumer oriented too. Like if you find any clever way to get people on board and go do anything with cryptography, I think that's a huge accomplishment. So like two sides to this coin, right? Go deep technical or figure out, is there something that humans like actually want?
Yeah, I guess I'll add some color. So I think the first couple of hackathons, I think there's been 3 now, and they've been pretty DeFi heavy, and that's been awesome. And you're kind of seeing like all the major primitives kind of being built out. Serum kind of the foundation, and then you've got people doing Radium, Saber, Psi options, Mango, Zeta, all these different things, right? And so I feel like there's a lot of momentum now on kind of the core DeFi primitives on Solana. So I think some of the things I'm really looking forward to are, at least in terms of DeFi, is people trying kind of new ways to build some of these product primitives. I think the most obvious example here is look at the borrow lend protocols on Ethereum. Compound and Aave are more or less the same product. Like there's very few differences in the core products. And like Euler Finance just announced the fundraising a few days ago, and like they're really the first team that's building like a lot of the new advanced types of features around the core borrow lend primitive. I think that's super cool. In Solana, I think you can kind of take some of those same ideas and extend them further and say, okay, we have basic borrow lend pools with a utilization rate and an interest rate based on utilization, but start to get more advanced and complicated in those different structures. So I'm very excited to see developers kind of use Solana's power and flexibility to build kind of things that aren't even possible today.
Yeah, nice. And what do you, I think, a lot of the DeFi primitives, whether it's borrow lend or, AMMs or order book exchanges or, margin trading, all of that, those primitives have kind of already been built out in the DeFi space. What are some primitives maybe in like gaming or Web3 or other verticals that you want to kind of see built out that will kind of like spur that later innovation and later on?
So like, I think examples of how to build like very simple primitives that are common across games. I think you see some of this with Loot, where it's really nothing, right? It's just some metadata, but having it standardized in a format that works across a genre of games that has a lot of different, permutations and different styles and can be reused is something that I think is like kind of the key metaverse building block. And I'm starting to think of it in terms of DeFi, where people started figuring out what is a token, what is the ERC20 interface, and so forth. How do you then do the same thing for transfers of assets and attributes and like identity between games and those kind of primitives as well. Something between like interfaces and document formats is like the challenge there. So if you got that, like you wrote a lot of character sheets for Dungeons and Dragons, this is like the perfect time to start building smart contracts.
Nice. What do you think, Kyle? What kind of like fundamental primitives do you want to see built out that haven't been yet on Solana?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know a ton about gaming. I don't follow too much anymore, but like, there's like, I think, for example, look at Stardust. They're making it really easy to build a marketplace to buy and sell that items in game. My intuition is there's quite a few things to do above and beyond that. Looking at NFT fractionalization, looking at repackaging things, looking at ways to take metadata and kind of combine it and recombine it. I really think there's a lot of opportunity in all of those things. Just as an example, so if you look at the Beeple 5,000 days, right, NFT, that obviously can be split into 5,000 pieces, but it's not even just that it could be split into 5,000 like pieces, each of which is not fungible. And I feel like there's a really interesting design space around kind of social coordination games around like people combining pieces of data to form some sort of like higher collective beauty or something. I think Loot is kind of dabbling with a lot of these ideas today. And I think there's a lot more cool stuff you can do above and beyond that. So I would really love to see teams who are kind of playing in that design space.
Cool. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I think you mentioned just like one really basic one that I'd love to see built, which is just fractionalization of NFTs, just to, enable a lot more liquid markets. And I think it would also like spread out, the ability and access for people to buy these things. They're getting pretty expensive. And so, forming DAOs and collectives and stuff, and having them being lower priced due to fractionalization would be really cool. Cool. And so let's see. Yeah, I guess there's been quite a boom in like generative NFTs on Solana recently. What are some like tools or add-ons or infrastructure that you'd like to see kind of around that, or different takes on the generative NFT projects that you think would be a good hackathon project this time around?
On the finance side, the floor perpetual was pretty cool. I think it's not quite ready. There's like I think the design has like one or two bugs in it, but if you try it, I think you might be able to figure out how to make it work, and that would be super cool. I think on the tooling, there's a couple auction mechanics that I think might be super cool to apply to NFTs. And this shouldn't be a lot of work. Like you can take the Mango IDO source code and apply it to an NFT drop with 1,000 items and kind of do the same setup where there's 24 hours to deposit, 24 hours to withdraw. And that creates, I think, a lot of the social like impact around the intensity of the demand for those items, which I think really drives a lot of the narrative and is like a really good, story for artists to jump off, right? If they've done a really big drop, but also is it feels like a really fair mechanism. for price discovery in those initial drops. So that's something that I think can definitely be accomplished in a week or two, and like, you should be spending most of your time building a really nice slick UI for it.
Yeah, the area I find generative art to be super interesting. I kind of love the idea that math can produce beauty. I think that's like I love that idea. That's why you've always talked about like the VDF and proof of history is like you can have math and code time. And I also love that like math can encode beauty, which I think is super cool, both audio and visual. And so, yeah, I think the most interesting design space or design, I think, vector for generative art that is still mostly untapped is the notion of time itself. So I've written a couple tweet storms about this in the last few weeks, but for example, you could have an NFT where the input into the NFT is like some piece of entropy. Let's use like the Merkle root of the current block or whatever. And like, therefore, every time you look at the NFT, it's different. Or maybe that's too much entropy. Maybe you just need the notion of time, and it like is slowly evolving and moving, like every 4 hours or every 12 hours or whatever based on time. But I think there's a really interesting opportunity to create generative art that incorporates time as an input into the algorithm itself. And then, of course, if you do that, then you can also that piece of art produces more NFTs over time. Right, because like any snapshot of that it produces at any point in time, you could turn that into an NFT. So it's an NFT that produces an infinite number of NFTs, which I think is super cool. I also think that there's a really interesting opportunity to kind of do that with creators as well. Today you're seeing creators issue NFTs, and like sometimes it's like random celebrities, sometimes it's a piece of art, sometimes it's like tied to music or whatever. But it feels to me like you should be able to chain NFTs together that have some sort of like related significance. So the simple example I would use here is, let's say you're like a TikTok influencer and your like passion is, I don't know, like saving the like climate change stuff. Let's say you have like 1 million followers on TikTok. If you post a video and tell everyone, hey guys, if you create an NFT, I'm going to do a series of 5 videos, and I'm going to issue an NFT for each one. And if you own that NFT, you can be in the next video. So you sell the first NFT, whatever, someone is in the video, and then that video is the second NFT for the next person. And so now you have this chain of 5 NFTs that are all like related to each other, right? I just think there's a really interesting design space here to incorporate the notion of time into these things. Because I think that really like a big part of NFTs is just memorializing an event. And so like you look at like Pleasure DAO, they bought the Uniswap V3 thing when that launched in like May or whatever, right? That was like memorializing the V3 launch. And I think this is a really interesting way to kind of build on the notion of memorializing some important moment in time.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Yeah, if the team wants to tackle any of those ideas, that'd be great. Let's see. Yeah, maybe I'll just open it up. We have about 20 or so minutes left. I'll open it up to just like, random ideas you guys want to see. NFT land, really anything you guys think of.
You dropped for a second, Matt, so I missed that.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying I was opening up the kind of floor for you guys to talk about and jam on any ideas that you want to see built in the hackathon. Across any of the verticals.
Gaming, I think, is like the right one to start like figuring out. Star Atlas, I think, had like really tremendous success on its kind of launch, but it's a AAA game that's going to take a while to build. And I think there's opportunity for people that can focus on like small mini games and start experimenting with play to earn mechanics, but also, right, like, can you actually build some of these data structures that are shareable across the genre, right? If you start shipping a bunch of mini games that are, Castlevania, side scroller, item collector, whatever, right? You can start figuring out what those patterns are that are composable within a true blockchain, cryptocurrency first gaming ecosystem. So like folks that are looking to experiment there, I think like that would be awesome to see, right? Like somebody that like creates the simplest mini games that are different, but like share the same smart contract data structure. That would blow my mind, basically.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunity around that. And then also like making things more interoperable between games. Um, and so like, I mean, look, the blockchain is there and any game can use it. But like one of the things that's really challenging is if you own an asset in game A, just having it render in game B is like, it kind of forces both games to have the same visual style, which is like not necessarily ideal. Like maybe you want to have different visual styles for different types of games. Almost like an interface layer, or like maybe this is almost like IPLD, or that may be the wrong concept, or you can kind of map a single asset to multiple visualizations and front ends for different types of artistic styles. That way you can like take an item with you across multiple games and have that notion of shared ownership, but not be visually, an eyesore as you move between environments. I think there's a ton of opportunity for game interoperability, and yeah, just really cool design spaces there.
Cool. How about in DeFi? I know the ecosystem is growing really fast. There's a lot of different kind of experiments running right now. Is there anything you think that's fundamentally missing? Anything like one thing I'd love to see more of is as more kind of individual borrow lend protocols come out, individual AMMs and DEXs come online. Like I would love to see more aggregators. I think those have been super successful in Ethereum. I think that's going to be successful in Solana too. So what are some maybe areas in DeFi you guys want to see expanded on?
Yeah, aggregators for sure. I think AMM style liquidity pools where liquidity providers deposit funds. I think that's one of the key innovations of the AMM. And I think that is actually more of the innovation than the constant function market maker. And I think the right way to approach it on Solana and Serum is to start basically automating the market maker portion using the Serum order book. Just start using the book as your function, right? And you can run cranks and proxies that automatically kind of move the LP's assets around the spread that's being managed by all these amazing liquidity providers like Alameda and Jump and stuff like that. And you basically built V3 without any other work. Like this is Uniswap V6 and you're using the best minds in finance to manage the books for your LPs. So just stuff like that, I think it is pretty simple to roll out and should be fairly simple to build on Solana and Serum. And then on top of this, if you're thinking about borrow lending and liquidations, Armani has done some work and some of the folks I think from the Jump teams are starting to build out the hooks to Serum to be able to pass around obligations between trades. So if you're a finance person and you're listening to this, it should tell you that it's then possible to use that same infra for arbitrary financial instruments, options, futures, perpetuals, whatever, and still use the same book. Obviously, it's going to be trading different pairs, right? But you can start using the same infra and start having those market makers plug into that in a really straightforward way.
Just kind of building on Anatoly said, I've been thinking a lot about DeFi derivatives. That's kind of the area I'm most excited about. And I think the kind of base idea is like to get to something that looks like decentralized FTX. And there's like a couple of ways to get there. One way, make all of the different DeFi protocols compose with each other. So for example, like if you have an option, like Psi option, being able to use a Mango perp or a Bonfida perp or a Drift perp as collateral in that. And like each of those three perps are like different, right? Like they're not the same. Like those perps aren't perfectly fungible because they have different liquidation requirements and a few other small details. So finding a way to make all of the various collaterals, like from the different systems, interoperate with each other is super cool. And there's like a big opportunity there. And then the other kind of related thing is building a front end that like handles all of this. Mango and Monfida are kind of doing this now, but I think there's a real opportunity, but they're all doing it just for their own protocols. Building a front end that like automatically gets that execution and like moves between all these things. And like, for example, lets you trade out your spot assets, but still like manage the same global collateral engine, right? Even if you have different derivatives outstanding, making all that work across the back end and the front end, I think is like a massive opportunity.
Yep. I feel like a lot of these PI pieces are there.
Hello?
Like you can, yeah, can you hear us, Kyle? Sorry.
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think a lot of those pieces are there. Like you mentioned, Psi options, you can plug into them. Mango, you can plug in there. And so just like combining them all together, making them composable is going to be super key. Another thing that's happened recently is we've had kind of the first set of like Oracle providers come online. So that's Pyth. Chainlink is now on DevNet. What are maybe some use cases that developers can utilize those tools for in their hackathon projects?
Totally.
Tools. Oracles are like one of those tools. I think there's like prediction market tools that could be built. I think some of those are data sources. Some of those are, there's a couple kind of libraries that are half built in the Solana program library repo for using oracles to trigger like prediction market results. You know, like the slickest implementation of this would be to like take the governance framework and an oracle, and then like use the governance framework for reputation and of the data and potentially like disputes, and then have those options serve as a prediction market. The pieces are there, just no one has combined them and said, hey, we're going to build this prediction market framework on Solana, and this is how it's going to look. Again, right, like these are like some of the tools that are missing. That the tools are there, it's just that combining them into a product, I think, is the missing part. I don't know what we need that's totally missing right now. Like that's a huge hole from Ethereum. If you're like a purely interested in just making the developer experience better, just start playing around with Anchor. And there's a ton of like little DevX improvements that would totally help. And that's maybe like not the sexiest project, right? It doesn't have like a product, and you're not going to get funding for it. But I think like us looking for awesome people to contribute, and there's tons of grants for that stuff anyways.
Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about is making it really easy to feed arbitrary data into smart contracts. If you look at Chainlink today, and I'm less familiar with Pyth, and there's another one on Solana, Switchboard, and there may be some other ones as well. I forget off the top of my head. You know, as these, I would really like to see someone make it trivial that like you can add your own data source to Pyth or Switchboard or Chainlink, kind of like, you know, self-serve basically, and then upload your own data feed on some cadence, whether it's hourly, whether it's one time. But if you can make that dumb simple for anyone in the world to do, I think you really open up the door for like the long tail of prediction markets. And I think that's like really interesting, right? Like if you let anyone be able to send Oracle data to the chain for anything, then you allow anyone to create any market for anything. I think that's like a really, really big opportunity. And again, kind of building out the entire product space around that, in terms of the user interfaces and everything else to make that all work, I think is super, super cool.
Yep. One area I'd love to see people tackle a little bit more that's obviously huge in the traditional financial industry, and maybe we have a little discussion if this was even needed in the first place. But like insurance products, given the nature of blockchains, them being somewhat trustless, and transactions being atomic, like I'm curious, do you think insurance is something that's really needed right now in crypto? I know there's been some attempts on Ethereum with like Nexus Mutual and such. Just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this piece, and if people should be focusing projects there.
It depends if you have like some really deep technical insight. There's latest and greatest in compiler research can get you to actually do like a lot of like algebraic analysis that's super computationally heavy on smart contracts and their inputs. If you can do that, I think that makes sense. Like you can actually simulate very large very large surface area, with a bunch of GPUs and arbitrary programs these days. That makes sense to me. Like I think purely like economic based insurance models, I feel like without like some insight into what the hell is going on in the contract, are ripe for, I think, mispricing the risk. Like that's really like I think kind of the problem, like with insurance. You got to be really specific about what kind of risk factors you're insuring against, and you need to have some alpha in identifying them. Otherwise it's like a crapshoot, Put your money in an NFT drop as a hedge instead. But that's my personal opinion. If you got conviction about insurance, go for it, man.
Yeah, so I think we've debated insurance a fair bit internally, and at one point we had one of our analysts look into all the major insurance protocols on Ethereum. We didn't invest in any, but we had kind of a few takeaways from that I'm happy to share here. So I think the first is that like if you're gonna do insurance, don't just copy Nexus Mutual, or there's like 2 or 3 other ones on Ethereum, maybe 4 other ones. I think that's very high probability the wrong way to do it. I think the most interesting ideas around insurance are tying the insurance to the auditor themselves, where like the auditors audit something and they have some tools, like for example what I totally just described, and then they put their money where their mouth is, and they say we will insure our these contracts, and then I think you put a token in there somehow. But like fundamentally tying the security analysis part to the insurance like makes sense. And now legally I know there's some legal challenges here, but like I just think that design space is like super, super interesting. And it kind of feels correct to me to tie those things together. I think the other important thing to note is just the fundamental challenge with insurance is that margins trend towards zero, because these systems are deterministic, right? So like today, if you look at Uniswap, for example, no one is insuring their Uniswap TVL because just everyone has such high confidence there's no bugs. Or look at Compound and Aave or Curve. The percentage of dollars in those systems that is being insured is actually decreasing over time, because people just feel like they're safe. So it's just a tough market for that reason, right? Like real insurance works because like people get sick and like they like text and drive and like they crash their cars and whatever. But here it's like a strictly deterministic environment. There is some interesting design space for insurance, but we haven't yet found the thing we love.
Cool.
Yeah, like I could see somebody be successful if it's like new project is being launched on a, you know, like smart contract, right? That has like, this is their first audit, nothing's proven. Either you do like simulation analysis and you ensure for specific hacks, right? And that could be pretty interesting, like for users. But I imagine, like Kyle said, that after a while, if the contract proves out to be bug-free, you end up with needing less and less of it. The counter to that, though, is that like things like when you get to more complex systems, central limit order books, like perps, everything else, it's just the surface area of the business logic is so large that the devs are going to always ship V2, V3, V4. You know, when is that going to end, right? Like Mango shipped V3, right? And it's a team that's like 3 months old, right? So they basically release a new version every, you know, 1 to 2 months. If we're at a stage in crypto where iterative development is the norm, probably insurance might make sense.
Cool. And then just some general advice maybe for people building projects in the hackathon. And no, this is not financial advice or anything like that, but like when do you incorporate a token into your project? Like what are the parameters that you think are right for that and think it would be a good fit?
You know, a lot of people shit on this like token thing, but I think it's important to just start from the start assuming that there's going to be a token, because that's what really crypto is all about. It's about this thing that unites a community around like a development effort, the open source projects and everything else. And the stuff that you see fail are the 19 out of 20 where that just doesn't make sense. And those products didn't make sense in crypto to begin with. So that could be like a really good filter function. If you can't, if there is no way to like define how this is all tied together around a token, it maybe is not like the right time for that in crypto today. And, you know, counterexample to this, people have figured out how to like do NFT drops with 1,000 items, no tokens, right? Like, or whatever. So there's other mechanics in crypto that I think are very core crypto about. Like the core proposition there is this like kind of community building around a thing that's cryptographically shared state between users. There's ways to kind of simulate those things without a token, but I feel like they need to be there. So start early in terms of like legal fundraise, etc., or releasing the token. Those are complex questions based on every team's like, you know, unique position and you know, with funding, where the jurisdiction, etc. So those are like kind of going to be like very team specific.
Well, I think Kyle
dropped
off. Not sure what happened. Let me take a look at the chat and see if there's anything people are wanting to get answered. No offense, but it feels like Kyle repeats a ton of what Anatoly says. Lol. It's ridiculous. Any ideas in Web3 that you're super keen on seeing builds?
You know, like I've been like racking my brain. How do we apply like social media? Like, how do we take like Web2 pieces and rebuild them in Web3? And it always ended up feeling like I'm trying to like make bricks out of concrete, where you're like looking at some Web2 experience and you're like, well, what if instead of a Google OAuth login, it was a wallet, right? Or something like that. It just doesn't quite capture that true like cryptoness of like what makes any of these projects unique and what makes it worthwhile for somebody to like spend the time to get custody of a key and actually go use this product, right? Like, because the alternatives between, you know, Reddit with a seed phrase versus Reddit with a login is just Reddit with a login, and it's hella easier to use that. Right? Like that's like You got to build something that is really unique and interesting and forces people to actually take that step, that hurdle to self-custody. So what does that look like? These are, I think, where people should start kind of thinking of, innovating, and maybe that start is something simple. But yeah, like if you're thinking about Web3, I wouldn't look to Web2. Like I think what I've seen that's been really interesting in crypto is that the Cope community is on Discord, but it's a social network. Like the DJ Apes Academy is on Discord and on Twitter, but it's a bunch of NFTs. That's a social network, right? That have clear representation that you're in the network when you own one of these things. So we're kind of building Web3 on top of Web2 as a communication layer, and I don't think we need to bring Web2 into Web3.
Yeah, sorry about that. I dropped my internet, kind of dropped for a second. What was the question, Matt? Sorry.
Yeah, we can go back to the original question, which was like when to incorporate a token into your project. I think we get that question a lot. Yeah, any thoughts on that would be appreciated.
Yeah, so generally don't do it too early. Like probably shouldn't be releasing a token like during a hackathon. There could be an exception, but quite unlikely. There's two ways. I think in most cases you don't want to launch a token until there's a product that works. I think that's the most general rule. Having a token that's out there that people are just like, oh yeah, someone will ship something one day. It's just it creates a lot of pressure on you actually as the people who created the thing, because then everyone's going to keep asking you, hey, when's the product launching? And like, inevitably there's delays, like things happen. It's software development. So, I think don't put yourself in that situation. Get some feedback and make sure people are using it. And then the second thing I would say is know why you're issuing a token. Tokens are superpowers if they are used correctly, but they need to be used correctly. So, like my favorite example is Compound, and they really pioneered this. Is they said, look, like this is an open protocol. Someone needs to govern the system. Like what kinds of collateral go in here, and what are the utilization ratios and all that stuff. And they said, look, we're not going to govern that, and the community needs to govern this. And like they had to come up with a way to give people the token. And they said, oh well, we should give it to some lenders and to some borrowers. And that was like a very intuitive way to do it. And turns out to have been, extremely smart. And so I would just say, once you're going to create a token, know why you're creating it, right? And make sure you're clear about that, your intention and your purpose.
Cool. That's good advice. All right. So we're almost at 45 minutes here. Kyle's got to run. He's got to go visit another castle in Germany. So we can wrap it up here. But yeah, thanks for watching us today. If you haven't registered yet, please do so at solana.com/ignition. Yeah, submissions are due on October 8th, and we're going to be running more of these Twitch stream sessions as time goes on. So thanks everyone. Thanks Kyle and Anatoly for joining. And yeah, good luck.
Yeah, just to quickly add, if you think that I'm wrong, Kyle's wrong, that's almost like the perfect signal to go build that thing. Because you're probably right. Like this is like it's like outsiders with conviction that have a vision are like the most that have the highest kind of returns in their investment when they get it right. So 100%, like just go for it. Whatever you really believe should be using crypto, that's the right thing to build.
+1, could not agree more. I love it when people tell me you're wrong for reasons X, Y, and Z. Those are the most fun conversations. So yeah, guys, hey, y'all have so much fun, build some amazing stuff. If you have any questions, DM me on Twitter. I'm sure you can probably DM Anatoly as well, or the Solana team. And can't wait to see what everyone builds.
All right, thanks guys. Bye.
Thanks.